Introduction, very nice of you. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and thanks for staying here that long. Great that some people made it that long. So, numbers are sexy. I guess hardly anybody thinks so. Well, I do, and I guess I have around 15 minutes to convince you of that. So, nowadays when it comes to startups, it seems to be like everything is vegan, zero waste, sustainable, organic, and of course 10% would go to charity, whatever. Okay, forgive me if I missed something. The thing is, many people think that's kind of ridiculous or getting kind of boring. Well, I don't, because big corporates. But on the other hand, many of those great ideas fail because they can't get their numbers right, they can't get their business model right, not even because people won't buy their stuff. And I think this is really sad, because I think, seriously, changing the world is totally sexy, and so I like to help with that. So yes, I'm definitely a numbers person, so crazy that, as you heard before, I studied mathematics, but I don't want to change you into a numbers person. So, the easier it is. And then I want to tell you one secret about startup financials. Because all you really need, all you seriously need, are basic arithmetics. Really. That's beautiful, in my opinion, of course. So, what's the problem then? Well, the problem is clearly not the calculations. The problem is not the mathematics, because everybody of you can do that. The problem is being smart with it and using your brain. Because if you don't, you will end up with a big sheet of numbers and full of numbers that don't really relate to your business. And that will get you into problems. Because this sheet is most of the time the basis for your shareholders agreement or for your credit line with the bank. So if that is wrong, and if you can't keep up with that numbers you put in there, you will end up not meeting your milestone, running out of money earlier than you expected, or in case of the grant credit, not being able to pay your credit installments with the bank. And ultimately, these cases can all lead into something you definitely want to avoid. They can lead to insolvency of your business. And I think we can all agree, at least here, that insolvency definitely is not sexy, right? So, what do founders do wrong? Most of the numbers, when it comes to startup business or business in general, relate to one of the following, either to revenues or to costs. And you can screw up both, for sure. But one of those goes wrong far more often. What do you think? Who's for revenues? I know tired arms and everything, but founders should have an opinion. Seriously. Costs? Okay, great. I have to tell you, it's definitely the revenues. Because if you look at a typical sheet, this is like a simplified one, but something you might even find as a download template of some sort. You will find a lot of details about the costs, but hardly any about the revenues. And if you're very lucky, they do something like that. But still, the sales, the customers, kind of fall out of the sky. You don't know where the numbers are coming from. How did they get to that numbers? How do they know they will start with 500 customers a month? Customers don't fall out of the sky. Because if they did, we wouldn't be here. We would all be at some nice place sipping our cocktails and thinking about how to spend our fortune. But we're not. We're here and trying to learn how to build a business, how to build a better business. So, customers don't fall out of the sky. And then we have some really smart asses. And they do something like that, telling you something like our addressable market is 2 billion in size, And if we just achieve a tiny, tiny 1% of market share in the next few years, we will end up with a revenue of 20 million euros. You would say in that case maybe, yeah, I earn like a 200 euros minimum per customer, so I would need like 100,000 customers. Okay then, and what are your customer acquisition costs? What is the average money you need to spend to get one customer in that industry or for that kind of business? And you would say, yeah, well, like 100 euros. And that's a great relation, right? Because minimum your customer lifetime value is 200 euros and your customer acquisition costs are 100 euros. So normally that is a really good start and really nice numbers to present an investor. But for your revenue, that doesn't make really much sense, because if you multiply the number of customers with the budget you need to acquire for one customer, you need to have to acquire one customer, you finally end up with 10 million marketing budget you need to have for reaching that amount of turnover. And that is something, at least in earlier phases, almost no startup has, at least in Europe, right? So, every customer costs money. And please don't say it will go viral. It won't. Because if you base your planning on customers coming in for free, that's not planning, that's praying. And investors will potentially not like that. So how to do it better? Ladies and gentlemen, please let me introduce you to the funnel. The funnel shall represent one of your customer acquisition channels. It doesn't matter if you are in B2B or if you are in e-commerce or whatever. You always start with allocating a budget to that funnel. And then the budget transforms into some kind of awareness and later more and more engagement. And finally, hopefully, into paying customers. But what is really interesting are these transition lines. Because here is where you can see how good your process works. And you can put numbers on that, called the key performance indicators, your KPIs. Mostly conversion rates, but at first the amount you need to get like one engagement out of your budget. And it doesn't really matter if you have like a really short and simple channel like a direct sales, or if you have a more complex channel like in many e-commerce cases with several steps. Important is that you model it as accurately as possible. And this is where your brain comes in. This is the very critical thing, because how you model your funnel has to match the reality of your business. And this is something you should really work hard on and be smart with, because that will save you a lot of trouble and a lot of work afterwards, and will even build a great basis for argumentation with your investors or with your potential investors. So be smart with it. And smart is the new sexy. And I didn't say that, Ashley Kushler said that. So thanks for that, sweetie. But there's more to it. So we can, if we have the funnel, we can easily transform that into a spreadsheet if we need that. And at some point you need a spreadsheet for the investors at least. You just go, that's why I put numbers on it. You just go through your calculations you do anyway, step by step, and put them in the table. And you will end up with your customers. And then you can add for all your funnels your marketing budget and your customers. So no customer will fall out of the sky anymore. You allocated budget for every single customer you got out of your funnels. But let's look at some specific cases. So if you are in seed or phase or pre-market, you might know that you have a funnel, but you think nothing more. But that is not true. You should think, again, use your brain. You should really think about how your funnel will look like and what KPIs you want to measure. This goes into lean startup methodology. And then you should try to replace the question marks with research values and educated guesses. So if you can't find the concrete numbers, the specific numbers, choose a similar business model in another industry, or choose in the same industry a slightly different business model. And the closer these two are together, the more it's educated and the less it's a guess. Yeah? But anyway, you need to come up with something, and that will then build the basis for your iterations. And with Series A, you ideally have a funnel like that. It's well defined, and you have some nice KPIs to present to your investors. You don't necessarily need a big turnover. Yeah. What you need is, you have a restricted budget, so maybe you couldn't get a lot of customers from that. But what you need is to be able to present a funnel that works. And then your argument is, for the investor, well, I might not have that big turnover, but I know how to generate them. I just couldn't do it because I'm missing the marketing budget. So give me your money, I will fill it into my well-defined funnels, and the growth will happen. I know how to scale already. And this is basically the best argumentation you can have for fundraising. But reality often looks like that. So if your funnel looks like that, this is what you have to work with. So at first, get your bad KPIs and argue them. Say, why are they so bad? What you can do to easily improve them in the future, and why you couldn't do that so far. Maybe you didn't have the time, you're too early on the market. Typical example is at the end of the funnel, when you have a bad rate of people really buying your product, really going through the checkout process, that you argue, okay, I'm really quite new with the web shop online, so it's not improved yet, so our conversion rate at the end is very bad. But if you give me a little bit of time and some budget to do that, we can work on that, and then we are really sure that the conversion will higher, and from the same budget we will get more customers. But if you think, okay, we have some KPIs which are not so bad means good. So embrace it. Yeah, good KPIs you have to push to the investors, because they won't do you the favor in most cases and ask for that because they don't know. You have to tell them. You have to say, hey, that might not be so good, but in that step we have a really good conversion rate, and hardly anybody on the market reaches that conversion rate. That can also be a competitive advantage, and investors are highly interested in competitive advantages, so really embrace that. And for the third case, not sure is not an option. You should always have an opinion about numbers and things of your business as a founder. So choose one, search for reference values, choose one of the options, is it good or is it bad? And then argue it accordingly. But you have to have an opinion, because otherwise you could look as someone who is not really in control of their business. And that is definitely also not sexy. So your line of argumentation could be like that. You say, okay, something is working, something is not working. But if you give me the resources and the money and the help I need and a little bit of time, I can change. All did it by just, knowing how your process works and maybe did a little scribble. But you can easily put that into a spreadsheet like we said before. For example, here we have a bad cost per click, and we want to improve that. And we want to show the investor what might happen. So we slightly improve that over time, lean startup, iterations, and so on. And we can finally show what will happen then. And if you put a little bit more, just a little bit, of brain power in, and define your costs accordingly, your overall things could look like that. And you could even put a little extra in and give some overall KPIs, like the customer acquisition cost at the end in a separate section. But only do that if you really want your investors to like you. So I hope at least you will agree with me now that being smart is sexy. Good arguments are sexy, because that might lead to the investment you want. And having an opinion is sexy, being ahead of the processes of your business and the numbers, and owning them instead of just trying to somehow deal with it. And as I said in the beginning, I think changing the world is sexy, because it's desperately in need of a change. So please go back doing that now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. You're the last one. You're done. Thank you.